I'm going to recognize Mr. Chabot, the chairman of the Subcommittee on Middle East and South Asia, for his 5 minutes, and then we have 3 votes, and we will return. Mr. Chabot.
Thank you, Madam Chair. In my opening statement, I only had 1 minute. Now I have 5, so I'd like to return to the topic of the proposed the statement condemning Israel that I mentioned before. As I previously stated, many of us in Congress were disappointed by the administration's handling of the recent draft resolution at the UN Security Council that selectively criticized, condemned Israel. The administration said over and over again, including to this committee, that the Security Council was wrong. It was the wrong place to address final status issues. But you repeatedly refused to publicly commit in advance to veto that resolution, leaving Israel essentially twisting in the wind. Then we found out, not directly from the administration, but from the press, that you had reversed your position and were trying to get a Security Council statement criticizing Israel instead of a resolution. And then when the statement was rejected and the resolution came up for a vote, while you did veto it, you issued a really astonishing explanation of vote that not only did not support Israel, but actually joined in the criticism. Many of us were extremely disappointed that the administration thought this appropriate, let alone acceptable. As I previously stated, in 529 short words, the administration undid all the good that had been done by its veto. In criticizing Israel, you used such language as reject in the strongest terms, corroded hopes for peace and stability in the region, devastates trust, folly, and illegitimacy. These were the words that you read before the world stage. We therefore, you closed, regrettably have opposed this draft resolution. Many of us read this as we agree with the demonizing, condemnation, and vilifying, but we regrettably have to vote against it. We wanted to support the resolution, and we agree with the substance, but we were regrettably, we have to vote against it. With those words, Ambassador Wright, and essentially, we threw our friend and ally, Israel, to the wolves. The United States, I think, has to look at this very closely. The United Nations is a deeply flawed body, and I'm disappointed to say that on February 18th, we added to those flaws instead of being a force for good. As a strong defender of our ally Israel, I want to make clear that I reject in the strongest terms this administration's criticism of Israel. It corrodes hopes for peace and stability in the region, and it devastates trust. I therefore regrettably have to oppose the folly and illegitimacy of that statement. Perhaps you can clarify for me, what was the administration hoping to accomplish with your anti-Israel statement? Would you want the U.S. to be treated this way by our allies? How can our calls to end the demonizing of Israel be taken seriously when this administration refuses to speak out at a particularly critical time when it really matters?
Madam Chairman, this is such an important issue that I would like to have the opportunity to respond in full. And if you would be a little generous with the time constraints, I would appreciate it. Right. I have to say, sir, with all due respect, I reject your characterization of that statement. Let me explain the following. First of all, the veto itself, the first of this administration, sent a very clear message, and our statement was clear about our view of the decision to bring the resolution forward, which we opposed. The statement laid out long-standing U.S. policy. It said we're committed to a comprehensive and lasting Arab-Israeli peace. It said we're focused on the goal of a two-state solution. It said the only way to achieve that peace and security is through direct negotiations between the parties. And it said that the draft resolution under discussion risked hardening the positions of both sides, encouraging the parties to stay out of negotiations, and to come back to the Council if they hit impasses in the future. The statement also noted long-standing U.S. policy that we have opposed unilateral steps by either party that could undermine trust or prejudge any final status issues. Settlement activity falls into that category, and the explanation of vote restated long-standing U.S. policy of 6 prior consecutive administrations, which has been consistent. It was President Bush in April 2002 who said Israeli settlement activity in occupied territories must stop. In 2000 And 5, Secretary Rice said U.S. policy is clear. The expansion of settlements ought to stop. Settlement activity ought to stop. We're particularly concerned about any kind of activity that would prejudge the outcome of a final status agreement. The EOV also stated that the only way to reach a two-state solution is through direct negotiations, and said it was unwise for the Council to attempt to resolve core issues that divide Israelis and Palestinians, and that every potential action must be measured against one overriding standard. Will it move the parties closer to the agreement? So that was what my statement said in sum. I think you need to read it in its entirety. It reflects long-standing American policy of successive administrations. We stood strongly against the resolution. We vetoed it. And if there's any ambiguity in a veto, I don't know what it is.
Thank you very much.
I stand by my statement. I think that the administration
and I
threw its
regrettably
foot under the
have
bus
to
on this.
say